Well, good evening and welcome to another brand new week. Valentine's Eve, you might say. It's Monday night here on pjnet.tv, and it's always our pleasure to have as our regular guest on this designated, I guess it's the second Monday. Does that sound right? Second Monday? Must be, yeah. On the second Monday at 9 o'clock, Andy Clapp joins us from a place that I am familiar, well, I shouldn't say real familiar with, but I know. You look like you're in your office, Andy. Are you working late, or did you get kicked out of the house, or what happened?
Working late tonight. We've got a huge event this weekend, and so I'm trying to get things together for that. We're doing a Brunswick stew and an auction on Saturday, and all the proceeds are going to help us with Operation Christmas Child. My cousin's husband is doing the Brunswick stew, and I'm doing the auction.
Uh,
So we have been running around like our pants are on fire because we just decided about 10 days ago, 14 days ago to do this. And so I've
well,
been flying.
you need to get in gear, because Christmas is right around the corner, and Operation Christmas.
Hey, look, when you figure it up, it's about $100,000 ministry here. And so every little bit helps. And the earlier we get traction and get it rolling, then the better off we are. And so that's kind of our mentality and our mantra this year is, hey, let's start early and hit the ground running.
All right, so this is Brunswick stew. Now, this a cook-off, or is it just you're serving
Mm,
Brunswick stew?
we're just serving it. Nobody can beat the guy who's doing it. He can't be beaten. So
Oh, okay.
nobody would challenge him. So
Well, I happen to know his secret ingredient.
yeah,
I do. I mean, everybody. It's chili and Brunswick stew. Everybody has their recipe that's
yeah.
theirs. They have their flavor. But the secret ingredient for good Brunswick stew is Zantac. Just pour the Zantac in the stew, and that.
I'm gonna tell him you said that. He does a good job with it, and so nobody's gonna challenge him. He's doing. Let me see if I got this right. 120 gallons.
Ooh,
Uh,
I
yeah,
mean,
120 gallons of Brunswick stew. So,
you're gonna have a passel of people there, aren't you?
oh yeah, yeah. God's been good to us, Coach. We opened the doors, and God keeps sending people, and like the local radio station kind of got behind it without us prying or nothing. They
Mm-hmm.
just kind of got behind it, and so we're planning on a crowd being there. In fact, if you can see my desk right now, it is like covered in pottery because we're the pottery capital of the world. Yeah,
How
yeah.
so?
You want to see it? You want to see some of it?
Said who? Yeah. And okay.
We are
Eh,
the pottery capital of the world, and
When you
so
say
we
we,
got
who is we?
this area.
Really?
It's in Seagrove, North Carolina. It's about 45 minutes from here,
Okay. Well,
and there's
anything's
like 80.
45 minutes from where you're at, Andy.
It's 45 minutes to run in water from where I'm at. But there's 85 different potters or so like that
Really?
live in this village. Yeah, and so they have generously donated pottery, and like some of the baseball teams here, we have a lot of minor league baseball teams who have donated stuff, and local restaurants have donated stuff. So we're going to have a massive auction, and the proceeds will go to help pay for Operation Christmas Child. But we've been guns a blazing because we just figured out, like like I said, about 2 weeks ago that we're going to do this, and
Okay.
uh, and it was like we got to have something to auction. So we got it. We're rolling with it. God's been
Well,
good.
yeah. So the Brunswick stew must be so good you can't auction that, or are you? Maybe have a little court take home,
We
thing.
got court take homes, but it'll sell out. We're hoping we have enough to feed the people here with
Golly.
120, 120, 125 gallons. We hope we'll have enough to serve here and then send a little bit out
Yeah.
because it will go. I mean, it's amazing how these things happen. But it always goes, and it goes quick.
I'm just excited to hear, and it doesn't surprise me at all, Andy. Not only that you're opening your doors, because you've opened your doors to PJNet for next month, and
Yeah.
you've opened your doors to the serious writers. And I just know of you are an open door type church. But what amazes me is that, by all measures, you're a small church, yet you have it. I guess you're kind of like the Marines. The few you guys muster up, and I don't know what does it take to get a congregation like that, because it's not typical.
Well, I mean, the size of the church never matters when you look at the size of God. And
Good
for
answer.
for us, for us, I mean, the secret ingredient was to truly, I mean, honestly, it's nothing we do. God fashions a group of people, and if they're like minded, and we tell people when they come into our church, this is who we are. This is who we are. This is how we do things. We believe that God has called us into bigger and huge ministries. We got one that's launching the week after you're here. On the 25th of March, we're launching one where we've got a missionary that was here for a while,
Mm-hmm.
him and his family, and they're in Honduras. Where they're at in Honduras has no clean drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now look, I didn't have anything to do with this, right? I didn't. He's a friend of mine. I know, obviously, I love him and his family dearly. But one of the people at church started researching the area they were in, found out the size and the scope of the problem with no drink, clean drinking
Mm-hmm.
water.
Mm-hmm.
And said, okay, here's what we can do. And so we're providing water filtration systems down to 40 different villages in Honduras
Uh-huh.
the week after you're here, because they believe in a big God, and they believe that God will provide it. And they've worked with this company, and this company is working with us, and we're going to be able to get it shipped down there. It amazes me that a lot of times we want to stay in the shallow end, but
Mm-hmm.
what we did at Mount Zion was we asked them to get into the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't get into it where it's over your head, and it scared me to death. When we built that facility, it scared me to death, because I mean it was almost $1 million, and we're not a huge church, and we were going way in debt uh, with that building. And I was like, Lord, if it's your will, you're going to make it happen.
It's your will.
And
It's your bill.
yep, and two weeks ago, that building was paid off in less than 7 years, and we had a celebration Sunday. So, and I told the church, I said, whatever you do not take this as we're celebrating us, because we don't celebrate us. We celebrate Jesus Christ, and that's it. And the size and the scope of our God, who proves himself big enough. And now that he has done this, can you trust him to do bigger in the aftermath? Can you trust him even more to do what we may deem impossible, but he says is possible?
Well, I'm fascinated by your project in Honduras, because I went on a mission trip in Colombia, and I don't mean
Hmm.
South Carolina. I mean down South America, okay, which is right there.
Yeah.
There are many things I could comment on, but relative to water, okay, uh, cisterns are the typical method of, harvesting and storing drinking
Hmm.
water. We went down there to put in a deep well, a real well.
Right.
We were there for 2 weeks, and it was at a college. We have where we train the missionaries down there. We the locals, and then send them out. Well, your strategy to provide filters might be the better strategy, and here's why. Two problems with the deep well. The plumbing in that building had never had more than 5 or 6 pounds of water
Mm.
pressure.
Yeah.
So as soon as we turned that deep well on, pipes started busting all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay. The second problem is we take it for granted here where we live that the electricity is on most of the time. Not down there. The electricity will go off every day. I mean, it's like a thunderstorm here in the south. It's just every day, and it will stay off. Not we're not talking about 1 minute or 5 minutes. We're talking about an hour or more.
Yeah.
Well, the deep well actually created some challenges that we did not anticipate. Where your idea of sending filtration systems might actually be more bang for the buck.
Yeah, it ends up, it does 200 gallons a day
Mm-hmm.
for, I think it's a decade, if I've got my numbers right.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're doing is we're going to launch it with this, and really, again, we're meeting people where they're at,
Right.
but doing what Matthew 25 said.
Mm-hmm.
I was, you gave me something to drink, and that's what honestly, Coach, you asked me how did this happen. We built the ministry here based on Matthew 25. The Lord led us to really build the ministry of the church around Matthew 25 because He separates the nations, and He one group did it, the sheep did, and the goats did not. And He was pretty clear in what it was. He was basically saying, "You met me where I was at," and the sheep said, "We never saw you hungry or thirsty or naked or without shelter." And He said, "When you did it to the least of my brothers, you did that unto me." And
Mm-hmm.
that's been our model from day one. Was how do we reach people where they're at, and how do we truly show them that Christ has affected us to the degree that we cannot overlook their situation, but we're moved by their situation. Jesus and a lot of his miracles in the Gospels, if you look, the Bible makes a point to say that he was moved by compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that not only did he understand the need, but he understood the depth of the hurting for that need. See, compassion isn't just, hey, there's a need and go fill it. There is a connection there to the hurting that goes into that need being fulfilled. That's what true compassion is. It's not just, oh, I see that, I'll go do something. It is connecting
Mm-hmm.
with where that person is. And so we have, as a church, sought to how do we connect with the people where they're at, that it opens the door for us to bring the gospel, but that we're that testimony that opens that door. That people will say, well, why would you do this for us? Well, why do you care? Well,
Mm-hmm.
we care because Jesus cares. And there was a time in our lives when we were far away from him, and he reached out and grabbed us and pulled us to himself. And that's what we want to do. And we try to do it, like I said, our ministry is broken up into four categories. It's our community, our state, our nation, our world.
Mm-hmm.
So everything falls into one of those categories, and we try to keep it balanced. There's so much that goes on here in the community. The pantry, the little free pantry.
I know.
That's an easy that's an easy thing for a church to do. It's very easy,
But very few
and
do it.
yeah, but it's an easy thing that anybody can do. And ours is feeding people week after week after week. We had a note left in it. It was probably a couple months ago, and the lady left a note, and we don't ask anybody to reveal their identity or nothing. It's nothing like that. It's just out at the end of the street. Come get it when you need it. And she left a note saying that she was a single mom and was worried because
Mm-hmm.
she didn't have any money, couldn't find food for her kids. Um, and then she found, that little free pantry.
Well, there's a
And
difference, Andy, that's very notable. The way you do your food pantry ministry. I said not many churches do. Actually, there's probably quite a few. But here's the deal: that pantry is under lock and key.
ours is wide open, and we don't hide it. We post it on Facebook when we fill it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I remember to post it on Facebook, we we post it so people know. Come on, get it. And if it gets cleaned out 4 hours later, guess what? We're out here putting more in it because there's need. And with the economy being what it is, the economy being as bad as it is, that needs growing. I mean, we're just chomping at the bit here to plant the garden in the back because we raise a garden in the back and then we harvest it and we just give it away. We
I was
do all
going.
the work, we do all the labor, but we give the vegetables away to the people who need it. And so we're chomping at the bit here because it's like last week it was 72 and then it was 30.
Yeah.
So we can't we can't get started until that last frost is out of here. But it's like, here's the thing: is that if God has equipped you, J. Hudson Taylor had a great insight on this. And for those who don't know who J. Hudson Taylor is, he was the first missionary to China. And in the waiting, J. Hudson Taylor was waiting to go and do his mission work. Well, the thing was during that waiting time, the Lord just kind of hit him with it one night. J. Hudson Taylor took inventory of everything in his life, and he was ashamed of it because he was ashamed of how many books he had that he no longer read. He was ashamed of how many clothes he had that he no longer used. And he said, "What would I do if I had to give an account tonight to the Lord for what I have and I don't use when someone else could make use of it?"
Mm.
And I remember reading that in graduate school and thinking, you know what? That's where we have to really excel in the ministries all around us. There's ministry opportunities all around us, but we have to be willing to utilize what God's already given us, because most of the time we're waiting on God to give us something else.
Mm-hmm.
All right, God, if we
Yeah.
if we
If.
had
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if we had
Mm-hmm.
this, then we could do.
Right.
No,
Mm-hmm.
start where we have to start where we are and
Exactly.
use what we've got, and
Amen.
then God will bring about more and more and more
And
and more.
Amen. Andy, thank you for saying that. I preach that. It doesn't matter. I learned this in disaster relief. It doesn't matter what you can't do with what you don't have. What
Exactly.
matters right now is what we're going to do with what we have.
I
Before
said
we
it.
run out of time, you have shared with me the story of the origin, the genesis of this garden planting ministry
Yeah,
at your church. But remind me of the details. It seems like you were just a youth pastor at the time.
I
Um,
was. And what happens is nobody listens to youth pastor. Uh, I was a youth pastor at the time, and behind behind the church we have a lot of land and stuff. And the pastor at the time was back there, and we had a playground that was fenced in, and he was standing there. I was leaning on the fence one night, looking out at the land back there, and I told him, I said, "You want to know why this church has never built a new building? Why they've talked about it for years and never done it?" And he said, "Sure, why?" Because when he first started as a pastor, they ramped it up again talking about it. And I said, the church has never used the land that God has given it, yet they expect God to bless what they haven't used.
mm-hmm.
And I told him, we were standing there that night, and I said, I'm going to put a garden back here, and if anybody gets mad, they'll just have to get over it. And what ended up happening was we had trial and error because we have clay here.
Mm-hmm.
Clay will grow some things, it will, and then other things it will not grow at all. And over the years, we kept on and kept on and kept on. But once we started doing that, and once we started utilizing that, that's when God allowed us to break ground, because I became the pastor a couple years later. And as soon as I did, the Lord was telling me, all right, go ahead. Go ahead. You've honored what I've asked you to do. Now go
Mm-hmm.
ahead. And now that garden's gotten bigger and more effective, a lot more effective, because people smarter than me got out there and showed me what I was doing wrong. And there was a plenty I was doing wrong.
And you built the buildings too.
Yeah. And God, and the
Two of
Lord
them, if I
provided
remember
the
right. You've had two annexes,
what's
or
that?
don't you have two annexes, or just one?
Just one.
But it's got
Yeah.
two big. Oh man, folks, you got to see this place.
Yeah. But
Not
it
from
was
the
all,
highway. You got to get past the.
you have to get lost and then hang a left, and
Yeah.
we're over there.
Yeah.
But no, I told our church a while back, if you always say in your life, if only I had,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll end up saying in your life, if I had only.
Ah. Wow. Well, darn it, where'd time go? Andy, I'm proud of your church and what they're doing, and I wish we had more churches like Mount Zion Baptist Church. But until that time, you are leading the charge, and gosh, I could just listen to your stories all night because there just seems to be no end to the tentacles. The branches lead everywhere in ministry from that church. They just go everywhere,
This
and
guy,
well, it's because
all him.
the branches go because the roots grow. Okay,
Yeah.
you know, or the branches grow because the roots go, and you got to go deep, and you got to go wide, and the increase will come. Andy, God bless you. Thank you for letting us know some. Maybe somebody will hear this and say, "My church isn't doing anything like that." Maybe they'll get
Hey,
off
lead
there.
the charge.
Maybe
Lead the
they'll.
charge.
You got it, Andy. Thank you so much for sharing. Hope you can get home in a reasonable hour, and we'll see you about this time next month, and we'll be in touch. Can't wait to hear more.
Absolutely. See you, Coach.
You the man, Andy Clapp. Boy, if I don't get you fired up, I don't. You need to take your pulse. That's what you need to do. All right. Well, folks, we're off to a great start, and there's more on the way. And while we get ready for that, at the bottom of the hour, Casper from Colorado will be joining us. And while I'm getting everything ready, I have something that you can do. Anybody can do this. Ask yourself 2 questions. They're not multiple choice. They're not true false. First question. What is the boldest thing that you've ever done for Jesus Christ? And the second question is, how long ago was that? And you see, the challenge is to never be satisfied with either answer.